David here with figbootonpens. Today I have for you a pen that I picked up very early in my collection. The biggest question I had at that time was trying to figure out what pen to buy. And there were so many out there to choose from, and I really didn't want to make a bad decision. So I read tons of reviews. I especially like reading a lot of top 5 and top 10 lists. If a particular pen shows up on a lot of lists, then the chances are pretty good that it's a quality pen. And it's one of those pens that I'll be reviewing today. And that pen is the Kaweco Skyline Sport. What I'm going to be doing is going over some of the parts and features of the pen, talk about some of the things I care for, some of the things I don't care for, show some measurements, some size comparisons, and then provide a writing sample. Kaweco is a company that over the years has really had its ups and downs. It's a German company which began manufacturing pens back in 1883 under a German name that I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Then in 1899, 2 gentlemen took over the company and began using the Kaweco name, which I believe is kind of a mashup of their last names. After World War I and the economic crisis that happened in Germany, the company declared bankruptcy in 1929. It was then taken over by another group and became one of the first German manufacturers to use injection molding techniques. The company ceased production in 1970, but was resurrected in 1972. It closed again in 1981, but then was revived again in 1995 and remains alive today. Now, the Kaweco Sport was first introduced in 1913, and this is what it looked like back then. Nowadays, the Sport is offered in lots of different colors and materials, and this is the box that mine came in. Now, this is what the lower price models come in, but some of the more expensive models come in some really cool tins. And what we have here is, if I can get it out of the box, the Skyline Sport. Now, the Skyline is a modified version of the classic Sport. Beside the Skyline being offered in some different colors, the main difference between it and the classic is the nib and some of the coloring. The classic has a gold-colored steel nib and some gold accents, and the Skyline is silver. Or silver colored. We'll stop by taking a look at the end of the cap, which has the Kaweco logo in silver colored metal. I mentioned that the name was a mashup of the gentlemen's names who ran the company at one point, and the logo represents that. The KA was from one owner, the WE was from the other, and Co for company. The end of the cap is circular, but it transitions into an octagonal design. And on the side of the pen, it actually says Kaweco Sport in silver to match the color of the nib. And I believe the classic Sport with the gold-colored nib has gold lettering and a gold logo as well. The end cap transition back to the circular design, and then there's a small step down to the circular barrel, which is straight, and then there's a very small step down to a back portion of the barrel. And the end cap of the barrel is ridged on the sides, and on the end in raised lettering it just actually says made in Germany. The pen is made of injection molded plastic. I've read some folks out there feel that this plastic feels a bit on the cheap side, but I don't necessarily agree with that. Is it precious resin? No, it's not. But have I seen and felt many other pens with much worse plastic than this? Yes, absolutely. So while it's definitely economical, I would not describe the plastic as feeling cheap. Now, you might notice that this pen does not have a clip. It's really meant to be a pocket pen. It's very sturdy and something that you could comfortably carry around in a jeans pocket, or even like like on a guy's jeans, it has that little secondary coin pocket. It fits really great in there as well. But if you're someone that likes clips on your pen, you can purchase one for the Sport, and this is what it looks like. I believe it's $5 or $6, maybe $7, and the clip has an octagonal shape to match the size of the barrel, and on one of the facets it actually says Kaweco, or it has the Kaweco logo in Germany, and then on the clip itself it actually says since 1883. The clip is very easy to install. All you do is slip it on. And then what's kind of, it's very secure, and I've never had an issue with this coming off at all. And it's also nice because it gives you the choice of how you'd like to orient the clip in regard to the lettering on the side of the pen. You can kind of choose how you want it. The cap twists off to reveal this very small nib. I believe it's a Bach nib. It says Germany since 1883 and M for medium. It has the Kaweco logo, and you know what? On my nib, you can tell that the stamping wasn't the greatest quality, that there's an error in the circle above the WE. That's something that really annoys me, but the nib is so small that you really don't even notice it. I didn't even notice it until I took this picture. If it were a larger nib and I had to look at the misprint all the time, it would really annoy me. Now, in spite of this error, the nib performs beautifully, especially for a pen of this price range. And here's a picture of the plastic feed. It's not red, it's just a little sheen from some ink that which I thought looked kind of neat. I believe it was from Noodler's Polar Blue, which I had in this pen for quite some time. The section is on the small side with a very slight flare on the end, and it transitions to the cap threads, which aren't sharp, which is a good thing because the section is a little on the short side, and you typically end up resting at least part of your grip on the threads. And in your hand, the barrel is extremely short. I actually find it very uncomfortable to use it this way. It's just way too small and light in the hand. And the sport is really meant to be posted. If I could actually post it, it'd help if I was using the right end. That it really adds length to the pen to make it more acceptable to use. And while it's still a pretty light pen, posting helps giving it just a little more substantive feel in your hand. The Sport accepts international short cartridges as well as a limited amount of converters. They do make some mini converters now for these pens, but at the time I purchased it, all that were available were these little squeeze converters, which are truly heinous. They don't really use a lot of ink, and they're just tough to use and not the greatest. I actually had one in another mini pen, and this is the official Kaweco converter, and I had some J. Herbin violet ink in here, and it stained the inside of the converter. And I've tried getting in there with the syringe to clean it out, and it's not coming out. So this squeeze converter is forever violet. But forget using a converter with this pen. The best thing to do with this pen is to eyedropper it. In doing so, it has a very large ink capacity. It pretty much fills up that entire barrel, which will last you for quite some time. And that I have this one eyedroppered right now, so I'm not going to take off the section. So the Kaweco Skyline Sport, it's the epitome of a pocket pen. This thing is very sturdy, so you can throw it in the bottom of your backpack or briefcase or pocket, and it will take a bit of a beating. I don't own one, but they do have a nice aluminum version of the Sport that has a real nice distressed look to it as well. The Skyline Sport will run you around $25. And it's one of the best pens that you can buy in that price range. It has a very unique look, which I do like. And as you see in the writing sample, it will perform very well. So let's take a look at some measurements, some size comparisons, and then the aforementioned writing sample. Now, here we go with some size comparisons for the Kaweco Skyline Sport. Now, I have recently purchased a new microphone, and it does have a number of settings, and so I am working through those. So if the sound sounds a little bit different, I'm trying to perfect it and work on that. So bear with me through that if it sounds a little bit different. That in regard to some other smaller pens, we have a Pilot Prera. And then here it is compared to a TWSBI Mini. And then here it is with a Pelican M205. And in regard to some larger pens, here it is with a Pelican M805. And then here's a much larger pen, which is a Wall Eversharp Deco Band. And then, just to be on the silly side, I have a brand new acquisition, which is something very special, which barely even fits in the frame, which is a Danny Trio Tame Nuri on Genkai. And it is just something that's just a stunning, stunning pen, and we'll definitely be taking a look at this later. But just take a look at that nib. It's a beautiful number 8 nib, and the Urushi lacquer on this is just incredible. So we'll definitely be getting some more looks at that, but you can see that it is significantly larger than the Kaweco Skyline Sport. So, as I mentioned before, that this pen is really meant to be used posted. And here we have the Kaweco Skyline Sport. And this is a medium steel nib, and the ink I'm using is one from Australia. It's called Blackstone. And this color is Barrister Blue. And this is what the bottle looks like. I believe that this is only available through Anderson right now. It's one of the Australian inks that they have. And this is what the color looks like. It's really a deep, deep blue. And I would categorize it more as a deep blue than a blue-black. But it's very similar to something like the Pelikan Tanzanite, or even the Diamine Shimmering Seas without the shimmer. But it's kind of all along that same family. So here we go with the rest of the writing sample. This is a steel nib that is not going to get you lots of line variation. And there's not a ton of variation between up and down and left and right. But even with some pressure, you get a little bit of variation, but not a lot. And in regard to wetness, it's a decently wet pen. I wouldn't categorize it as wet or dry. It's kind of in the middle. And in regard to reverse writing, it's very sharp, but it does lay down an extra fine line there. And in regard to fast writing, it has no issues whatsoever, and the feed keeps up just fine. So we have here the Kaweco Skyline Sport. It's a great little pen. It's truly one of the better pens that you can buy for under $30. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.